Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Avengers Endgame 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. And yes, today is finally the day we're taking a look at none other than Iron Patriot, the big bad hunker diecast that we've been so eagerly awaiting the arrival of. Yeah, I can't wait to get this guy out of the box. Now, if you'd like to pick up your very own Iron Patriot, he is available right now with toyswonderland.com. Link for that is down in the description below, and they do have 12-month installment plans and a brand new kick-ass reward system. Check the link down below. What we are going to do now, though, is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here, of course, we have the box art for Iron Patriot. It's done in the usual Avengers Endgame style, with that soft oil painting kind of aesthetic on the image on the front. It also has that metallic effect, just like we saw on the Mark 85 and Rescue. Now, I'm a huge fan of the way they do the diecast boxes nowadays, because it's literally a black foam insert that you can slide out. Now, on the back, we do just have all of the relevant legal information. Now, I have seen this guy in person, and I was blown away. Back then, before it was actually announced for pre-order, we were speculating as to whether or not this guy was going to be diecast. And of course, when he was revealed to be metal, I personally was super excited. And here we finally have him. I have to say, this guy does feel like a hefty boy in hand. He's chonky and he's awesome. Now, up on top, we do have one tray, and of course, down below, we have another. So what we are going to do now is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Here we have all the bits and pieces that come with Iron Patriot. Now, starting off with the display base first, as you can see, unfortunately, they've done it again. They've used the oversized diamond-style display base. It's just too big. It doesn't work. I totally get it. Iron Patriot is a bigger figure. It makes sense to give him a larger format base. But not this one. Never this one. It just doesn't work. You have a point at every end. You can't butt it up against the edge of your cabinet, and you can't have other figures butted up against this base. They should always be using the quarter scale base / the base that they give to Venom and Thanos. That one is perfect. At the very least, the print on top looks great. We've got the Iron Patriot / War Machine Air Force style logo, and a super high gloss red Avengers A. We also have Iron Patriot printed on the front. But yeah, I do think they could have done better with the base. Now, we do have a bunch of swap out pieces that form around his gauntlet. These are kind of like what you have with the Mark 6. You clip these pieces around his forearm to create a fully armored up look, and you'll see that a little bit later in the video. Either way, they are painted really nicely. A super high metallic shine, there's a flake to it, there's detail on the surface just to give it a little bit more life. So overall, yeah, I'm loving the way these pieces look. You also get some missile pod attachments. These connect to his back, but there is actually some articulation here. They're pegged in at 2 ball joints, so you can move them forward and back and get a little bit of swivel. And then, of course, you can open them up to reveal the missiles on the inside. There are various different sizes and shapes, and some that are painted in a metallic red, and the rest are all done in a gorgeous gunmetal. Now, you can close these up, but unfortunately they're a little bit hard to open just due to the beveled edge and not being able to shove your fingernail in there, so I'd suggest using one of the Hot Toys pry tools to get that done. The other big attachment that he comes with is this big honkin' cannon. I love the way this thing looks. Now, it also has some articulation forward and back, some swivel, and you can actually split the cannons apart if you want them firing in different directions. You can also move them up and down independently of one another just a little bit. The pistons on the side are real and working, and you do have some ball joints down below just to facilitate that bend. The The paint applications on this thing are also really nicely done. They perfectly match the suit and the rest of the swap out parts and pieces. He also comes with, of course, a variety of hands. Now, I've taken the liberty of bringing out one of the original Iron Patriot hands just so you can see the massive size difference here. The new Iron Patriot definitely has a lot more bulk here, and I love it. He's a big, beefy figure, and it works perfectly for an armored up figure like this guy is. The paint applications on this looks awesome as well, dirt and grime on the surface, not to show that it's battle damage per se, just to give it a little bit more detail and show slightly more life. Now this piece right here, I know a lot of people were saying isn't the best likeness to Don Cheadle. Now bringing in the Endgame War Machine Mark VI head sculpt, I can definitely see the likeness in both of these sculpts. Now the skin tone is a little bit lighter on the left here, and the head is actually slightly larger. I think they've done that so it wouldn't look ridiculous when you go and peg a small head on this massive body, so they've oversized it just a little bit, whereas this one they had to shrink down to fit inside the helmet and not make the helmet look oversized. So yeah, I do like the sculpts on both, but I can definitely see Don Cheadle here. The expression is simple, yet he does have a little bit of a furrow to his brow, showing that maybe he's concerned or is concentrating during battle. Either way, I like the expression, I love the paint applications, and of course there is a ton of texture in the hair. Now to go along with the head sculpt, you have this collar piece. You simply slide it on, then peg this into the body. Don't worry, you will see that a little bit later in the video. And we will find out if this fits on the Endgame War Machine Mark VI, because I'm curious to try that. Either way though, I'm really liking that sculpt. What we are going to do now though is get the Iron Patriot himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And if I was tasked with only using one word to describe this figure, it would be tank. This guy is enormous, and I love that. He's something that is so drastically different to all of the other War Machine and indeed Iron Patriot suits that we've gotten before that he just stands out on the shelf. He's a shelf stealer. As soon as you walk into the room, this is the guy that your eyes will immediately be drawn to. The super geometric nature to the armor, he's got sharp bits and pieces everywhere, he's painted in a gorgeous metallic blue that catches the light beautifully. This guy will steal the show no matter where you put him. Even if you have him right up alongside the Battle Damage Mark 85, I reckon this guy will get more eyeballs than that super iconic figure. Overall, yeah, so far this guy is stealing the show. What we are going to do now though is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal, and with all of his LEDs turned on. Usually I'm not a massive fan of light up effects on Iron Man figures. They don't last very long, they're not all that punchy and vibrant, but here they look awesome. I love the fiery red of the LEDs, and they are also on pieces that can move. I don't know why that makes me as happy as it does, but I love being able to swivel these pieces forward and back and have them fully lit up. Plus his eyes look awesome in that fiery red as well. There's something about a red-eyed Iron Man suit of armor that works so very nicely in 1/6 scale. Speaking of working so nicely in 1/6 scale, I think this suit was destined to be made into a figure. I'm pretty sure that was one of the design briefs. Make this suit look as toyetic as possible, and that's exactly what they did. This guy looks awesome. He's a massive, chonky figure. He's chock full of diecast, and he articulates fairly well. Plus, the paint applications are stunning. You can see that this guy picks up the light like a champ. He's metallic, he's got a flake throughout, he also has a ton of surface chipping and detail just to make it look all the more realistic. He also has a ton of hidden joints and moving parts and pieces. Usually when it comes to these hip skirts, you can immediately tell exactly where they are, but these are very nicely hidden. I love when Hot Toys are able to seamlessly integrate all of these moving parts and pieces, like on the back. Because initially, you might think, well, nothing moves there, but that couldn't be further from the truth. These pieces move out, and even the little flaps down below can move out as well. Plus, you'll see in just a second when we swap out all of the various bits and pieces, you can attach cannons and missile pods and a whole bunch more to make him look even bigger and more armored up, if that's something you were craving. Now, I know a lot of people are waiting for a War Machine repaint of this figure. I personally would absolutely love to see that, but to me, this design is so unique, it kinda just makes sense as Iron Patriot. I mean, the War Machine suits have been getting sleeker and sleeker, where we haven't really seen Iron Patriot since Iron Man 3. So if they're gonna do an all-new design that's a massive departure from what we've already seen from War Machine, then Iron Patriot is the best color scheme to do it in. Now, speaking of the color scheme, I don't know about you, but I'm loving this blue. It's not as deep and rich as the royal blue, let's call it, from the original Iron Patriot. This is a little bit softer, but I like that. I know that a lot of people don't necessarily love the red. That is something that I'll touch on a little bit later, but I will admit that yes, it is something I have noticed. You can also, for some reason, because they do it with every War Machine and Iron Man figure, remove the chest plate to reveal a little bit of detail on the inside. Overall though, so far I'm loving the way this guy looks, but I'm pretty sure you'll want to see him fully weaponized, as do I, so here we have him, fully assembled with every single one of his weapon attachments. And I thought this guy was a tank before, but now that he's fully weaponized, this guy looks even more awesome, if that was possible. Now, there are multiple different options for how you assemble the gauntlet pieces. You can have the big cannons on the underside, or you can have the smaller ones. In my display, I'm probably going to opt for the big ones. I think that's the coolest look, but up on top you have a smaller gun, and you do have some missiles both on the underside and up on top. And of course, that's for both the left and right. This is a really darn cool look, and it does sell the illusion of all of this stuff popping out of his gauntlet. Up on top though is where you'll notice the biggest change. He has both missile pods and the two guns. Now the guns can articulate just a little bit, but it's a little bit of a rickety mechanism, so you do have to be careful when you're moving it. I am worried for those very thin pistons on the back, these pieces right here, because those are the ones that are bearing most of the stress moving it up and down. There is a joint down below that you can manipulate it forward and back on, so I would suggest grabbing onto it at the lowest point and then maneuvering it forward. That is the safest way of doing it. Now, of course, if you did want to, you could remove the big cannon and just go for the missile pods. It does just connect to the back there, and this gives us a great opportunity to see the two belts being fed into the middle section that would probably be going ahead and powering this gun right here, either being full of bullets or some kind of energy, depending on what kind of weapon this is. Now you can also close up the missile pods if you don't want them fully exposed, or you could just opt to use one and go for a classic War Machine look with one missile pod and the cannon. Overall though, I can unequivocally say that this is how my Iron Patriot is going to look in the display. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the original Iron Patriot on the right and the new version on the left. Right off the bat, you can see the new one is bigger, and quite substantially so. He's also a lot chunkier, he's got big, broad shoulders, especially when it comes to his massive shoulder pads, and I like that. You can see there has been a design evolution at play here. It makes sense that he is a 2.0 version of this original suit. You can see that there is a close relation there, and that all stems from the color scheme. They've been very careful with where they have placed the red and the silver to almost perfectly mimic the placement on the original. If you look at the biceps on the top of the head, the hands, the forearms, and down on the shins, plus that little pop of red on the feet, it's all there on both suits. They have, however, made some changes to the saturation of the color. Now, I do prefer the original color scheme here. I like the more vibrant metallic red, I like the more rich royal blue, but the new guy looks good as well. But if he was painted in a much deeper, more vibrant paint, I reckon he'd look even better. Next up, here we have him alongside the War Machine Mark VI, the suit that a lot of people don't really love, and I'm struggling to see why, because the design is so similar to Iron Patriot here, specifically in the proportions. Number one, he's almost the exact same height. He's got the big, broad shoulders with the massive shoulder pads, he slims down towards the waist and the legs. The same exact thing can be said for Iron Patriot, except he's got a little bit more at play, especially on the upper torso, even more bulk. The color scheme is also dramatically different between the two. If you are wanting a classic color scheme War Machine suit, do yourself a favor and actually sit down and consider the Mark VI. It's an awesome figure. It's painted really nicely, it's still very hefty, and it's a figure that was released quite recently, so it should be quite easy to find. Overall though, if I had to pick between the two, I would of course go for the Iron Patriot. It has way more presence in the shelf, it's a bigger, beefier figure. Plus, I like the way you can swap out all of those various bits and pieces and give him a totally armored up and fully badass look for the display. Lastly, here we have the Patriot alongside Rescue and the Mark 85. These three look awesome standing together. I can't believe that we got so many awesome suits in the same film, but here they are in diecast and in 1/6 scale, and they look glorious. Now, I was expecting, as I just said, Iron Patriot to be a little bit taller. Does it make him any less worthy of entering the collection? No, I don't think he does. I think the bulk more than makes up for it, but slightly more height would have made this guy look even more awesome and more imposing. Now, you can drop the legs down to give him slightly more height, but then there will be that gap at the thigh section, so I don't necessarily think that's a good solution. Overall though, even though he's a touch smaller than I thought he was going to be, he's still fantastic. And now for a patented budget Stark weight comparison, I know that I personally was really curious as to how the new guy stacks up to the previous Iron Patriot and War Machine Mark VI. So starting off with the OG first, he comes in at a very respectable 865 grams. Then moving on to War Machine Mark VI, he comes in at over a kilo, 1.134 to be precise. Then, lastly, bringing in the biggest of the bunch, the Iron Patriot from Endgame comes in at 1.325 kilos. Definitely the heftiest, and you can absolutely feel that in hand when you take this guy out of the box. For those wondering, here we have the War Machine Mark VI wearing the Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes head sculpt, and I think it looks fantastic. I was expecting it to not necessarily work as well as it does. I thought the head sculpt was going to be too big, or maybe too small, or the neck slightly too long, but I think everything looks in proportion and it works perfectly with this suit. So much so that I'm going to be displaying my War Machine Mark VI permanently wearing this head sculpt because I love the way it looks. Then again, seeing this head sculpt on the Iron Patriot Mark I here kind of makes me want to display the head sculpt on it. It looks really awesome as well. It's a super versatile sculpt. It'll work with pretty much whichever War Machine, or in this instance Iron Patriot, you decide to go with. As long as you can remove that lower neck portion, this head sculpt should pop on. And yeah, I'm really impressed with the way it looks on this body. Now, it does look slightly too big from some angles because this suit is a lot slimmer, but overall, I still really like the way it looks. Just going over articulation on Iron Patriot. Now bear in mind this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now, starting off with the helmet, you do have a bunch of parts and pieces surrounding it to give him that really buff look. But that does mean there is a little bit of a collision warning, so do be careful when you're moving the head. You have a ball joint at the base of the head and another at the base of the neck, so combined you get a fairly decent range forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. Now before you move the arm, I do recommend pulling the shoulder pad out, just to give you the best chance of not scuffing up the paint on this piece or the rest of the body. The arms will go up the full way, they will of course go forward and back, butterfly joint at the shoulder, but this piece actually does pull out to give you even further range. You do have a swivel at the bicep, a double bend at the elbow, and the cool thing is the bicep piece actually does move forward and back just to give you a little bit more range. And lastly, a ball joint for the wrist. As for the torso, you do have a little bit of movement. These pieces, of course, do move out of the way, but you can separate the upper and lower torso with one click to get slightly more range forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. Now the legs also do drop down, so bringing this one down, you can see it's sitting lower than this one. It moves forward the full way, it goes out to about there, swivel up there as well, a super heavy duty ratcheted double bend at the knee, and you also have a ton of movement in the foot, forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. You can also move the toe independently, and this piece is also on a hinge. Just going over the 3 cool and 3 annoying things with Iron Patriot. The first annoying thing is of course this base. It just doesn't make sense. It's not practical, it's far too large. I mean, the figure himself is quite large, but this just doesn't work. Also, he doesn't even come with a dynamic flight pole, he comes with this metal rod and the crotch grabber, so you can't have him in midair. Therefore, it really doesn't make sense that he came with this. There's no need for such a big footprint if you're not trying to balance the figure in the air. Now, I personally think they should give all big figures this style of base. It's far more practical, you've got flat edges so you can have other figures' bases butted up right against it, and it's not as deep. This is my preferred, and this right here is my least favorite display base that I think Hot Toys make. Now the second annoying thing isn't really a massive deal, but it's something I did notice. I personally prefer the much more vibrant metallic red on the original Iron Patriot, whereas the new one slightly leans more towards pink than a fiery red. I don't know if that's going to bother you, but I totally understand why they did it. In the film, the color grading made it look a little bit less saturated, but I think they could have taken a bit of artistic license and made the red a little bit closer to this. The third annoying thing isn't this Don Cheadle head sculpt. You already know how I feel about it. I love it. It's this collar piece. Now, yes, it makes sense to give us one for Iron Patriot, so I'm not mad at that. What I'm a little bit frustrated with is that we didn't get a War Machine colored one for the Mark VI. That War Machine is in the exact same line. We've seen them do stuff like this in the past. With the stealth suit Spidey from Far From Home, we got a bare skin tone neck to go with a Tom Holland head sculpt that didn't even come with the figure. It's something they could have very easily done, literally just repaint this piece in the War Machine colors and pop it in the box. The first cool thing with Iron Patriot is how you can store his various weapons. This piece right here is one of the missile pods, it magnetically attaches on the inside, then this one is one of his cannons. Now the other cool thing is when you do go ahead and install both missile pods, it kind of looks like he has this big massive thruster section down below. That is a really nice touch, and I appreciate how seamless and modular these pieces are. They literally just pop right in. The second cool thing is the awesome light up effect on Iron Patriot. I love the various little lights dotted all around the place. This is tempting me to go ahead and get one of the fusion or soap reactors and have this guy powered full time. I love the red lights, and I love how they're just nice and seamlessly integrated into the design of the suit. The third cool thing is how seamless the Don Cheadle head sculpt looks on the body. I love the way this looks. You all know I'm all for displaying my figures with their helmets on, but I am tempted because this is the first and maybe only time we're going to get a fully unhelmeted Don Cheadle head sculpt. I'm tempted to display my Iron Patriot like this. Just wrapping up on the Avengers Endgame Iron Patriot. Now, going into this video, I let you all know how excited I was to finally be receiving him. At the end of the video, can I honestly say that excitement was warranted? Yeah, absolutely. Take one look at him. From pretty much every angle, there is something to see here. The design is so unique and so drastically different to all of the previous Iron Patriot and War Machine suits that this guy just stands out by sheer design alone. But it's not just that. He comes with an awesome array of accessories that bulk him up even further. He's painted to the nines, and it's a really nice paint job as well. There's depth here, there's a metal flake, there's weathering over the surface. It looks stunning. Plus, he is chock full of die-cast. He's one of the heaviest, one of the best engineered figures that I've ever seen Hot Toys make, and I'm super happy to finally have him. Long story short, yes, this guy was absolutely worth the wait. That Don Cheadle head sculpt opens up so many doors in terms of which War Machine figure you're going to use it with, because technically it should work with all of them. And it's a fantastic sculpt, so I personally am currently displaying it on the Endgame Mark 6, but I am tempted to try it on a few more, because it is very versatile. Overall, yes, this guy's awesome. Absolutely pick him up before he sells out. He's a big chunky boy. He's gonna steal your attention as soon as you walk in the room and look at your endgame shelf. Trust me, this is the one that your eyes will immediately be drawn to. He is that impressive. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. He is in stock and ready to ship at the time of filming this video, and they do have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. Check out the link for that down in the description below. Also check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.